Hello,
How you doing?
welcome. Hey, welcome to You Choose, a choose your own adventure style journey through the entire CNCF landscape. I'm here with Victor. Victor, where are you? Where are you right now?
I'm in Tel Aviv, Israel, in a hotel
In,
room,
in
waiting for this to
Israel.
finish so that I can go and visit the city. Hurry up, Whitney.
Woo! Hey, hey. I'm gonna take my time and enjoy this moment, especially now. I'm totally one of those drivers. If someone starts to tailgate me, I slow down. So that's what's happening here. Scott Rosenberg's here. Hi, Scott. All of you joining us today and watching this week, you can say I've been following this show since way back in the beginning when they were in their first chapter doing the first 20 projects. Years from now, it'll be like Victor has a big long beard. I have great, completely white hair, and we'll still be navigating CNCF projects. You can say I
Except
knew
that
them
Victor
when.
will not be with a long beard because this is
No.
Victor not shaving for 3 weeks already.
Yeah.
So, beard would, if I can live to 200, maybe.
Or it's a testament to really, truly how long we've been doing this show. But Victor and I are presenting together at KubeCon coming up in just a month now. So that's pretty exciting. And we're doing a choose your own adventure style show. So we're going to try to recap this entire first chapter in a 35-minute presentation. So that's going to be something. I'm looking forward to that. So today we're talking about how to develop an application on Kubernetes. And let's go through quickly where we've been so far. So we're in chapter 1. So in chapter 1, we're taking the application from a developer's laptop to a development environment. So far in episode 1, we built a container image. Episode 2, we chose an image registry. In episode 3, we figured out we talked about different technologies to develop an to configure and define an application. And episode 4 is where that was Cert Manager, used HTTPS. Episode 5, we introduced a database and different strategies for integrating a database in our development environment. Last week, we talked about schema. So we did Schema Hero and Liquibase. Is that accurate, Victor? Cool.
That's it.
That's where we've been so far. And let's talk more about last week's episode and what everybody chose for that. So we had 2 guests for managing database schema. We talked about Schema Hero, which is a declarative way to manage schema in Kubernetes. What do you want to say about Schema Hero?
It's Kubernetes. It's
Kubernetes.
Automatically awesome.
Is that how that works? I think there are a lot of people who might disagree with you.
Yeah, well, they're not in this show, so nothing you can do.
Excellent. And then contrast that with Liquibase. Liquibase isn't necessarily for Kubernetes. It works in Kubernetes. And then Schema Hero defines the final state. And then with Schema Hero, you can define the final state. And then Schema Hero will work to get it there. But with Liquibase, maybe for more sensitive data, you might want to define how your application reaches that state. And that's what Liquibase's changelog.
I've been using Liquibase since maybe 15 years ago or something like that, maybe even 20. I don't know. It's a very old project. It does everything you can imagine to do, so it's great.
Yeah. It's two
like
good projects.
Jenkins for database schemas.
Nice. I like that. So 2 great database projects. In fact, on Twitter, people were talking about how Schema Hero needs a Liquibase plugin. That'd be cool. Yeah. No.
It's only 1 pull request away. Do it.
And so let's talk about who won. Drumroll, please. Schema Hero. I'm a little disappointed Schema Hero won. Do you know why?
Why?
Because Liquibase isn't CNCF, and we were going to be able to be like, gotcha, dead end. And we couldn't do that. So Liquibase is not CNCF, so even if it won, we wouldn't have implemented it in the demo because we're working with CNCF projects.
Yeah.
So
that does not mean that it shouldn't be a choice for people.
Oh, yeah.
So people should use only CNCF, but we're limiting ourselves to CNCF here.
Yes, that's a very good point. It's not in any way an inferior technology. It's just the limitations we put on this show in particular, because we have to draw a line somewhere. But but since Schema Hero is the only choice, we wanted to bring on other choices too, so that we could have a conversation. So with that, do you want to show us how it's done, Victor?
Yeah.
Let's implement Schema Hero.
Can you share my screen?
Absolutely.
There we go. So I'm going to copy and paste like all good developers do. This is the repository we have. By the way, all the instructions for all the paths, everything is there, what we did so far. I'm going to go to Schema Hero. There we go. Sorry, not to Schema Hero, to Schema section, blah, blah, blah. All the text is Whitney's fault. It's actually awesome. Anyways, Schema Hero instructions, right? So I should install Schema Hero, which I think I did already. If it works. Did we have a demo that didn't fail so far? We didn't. Anyway,
they all actually failed at first, but then by the end of the episode worked.
Yeah. And you know, just as when I complimented Whitney how she put all the text.
I'm just stating facts,
There we
Victor. There's no opinion wrapped up in that.
Anyways, here's so one of the previous choices was to use YTT, so I'm going to wrap Schema Hero in YTT. So here is the definition of Schema Hero. A lot of things here that you would not need, because for this to work I had to put all the permutations. But what matters is that I'm defining a database, and I'm defining, there we go, a schema that will be created. In this case, only one table videos with a couple of columns, right? Nothing really special. And then I'm going to, oh no, wrong button. Here is the schema for, not Schema Hero in this case, for YTT. So what I'm going to do is, I already have everything under conditional somewhere. Here we go. Schema Hero enabled false. So I'm going to enable Schema Hero by changing that value. And I'm going to create a manifest that is created by the YTT, right? So now we have here the table, right? Among other stuff that we did before. And we have the database that says, hey, find me the connection string from this Kubernetes secret, connect to the database, and then apply this schema. Easy. Now, kubectl -- namespace dev, I want to apply whatever I output with YTT, YAML dev. There we go. Maybe. Who knows?
There's always excitement.
It's building tension. There we go. Right? Now, if I send a request to my application, it says there is no table videos. Now, that could be due to one of the two reasons. First, because my demo failed, which is more likely one, or because Schema Hero did not do its job yet. There we go. It's working now, meaning that there are no columns. I'm going to send two requests to add some data to the database through my application. And now if I retrieve, there we go. This is now retrieving from the database from that table. Easy. Extremely easy. And that's about it. Now we have schema up and running, application deployed, blah, blah, blah. Now we're going to talk about how we can develop our application with all this in mind. And that's the subject of today's session.
Yes, it is. So we are talking about 4 different technologies today. I can bring this off. Hey. So we're going to talk about Telepresence, DevSpace,
Yes.
Devfile, and Nocalhost.
Yes.
So we got 4. Yeah. And what are we? I'm
the one going to defend Nocalhost.
we couldn't find a guest, someone to come on from Nocalhost project. So Victor's the one who's defending Nocalhost today. Let it be a cautionary tale for any future technologies. Please send a person, or Victor's going to be the one. He's not going to hold back about the bad stuff. So here we go.
Exactly. Whitney, when you contact people in the future, you send them this clip. Not this clip, but when my part comes. You have two options.
I really will.
You can come or you cannot come.
You do you. But I'll get to time you for the 5 minutes, so I don't go over. Or I'm not even a second. Okay, so let's talk about, before we bring on our guests and introduce them, let's talk about like what are we looking for? What's the problem we're solving, and what kinds of qualities do we want in a technology that's going to help us develop on Kubernetes?
So my 2 cents are, I want an easy way to deploy to a development environment, whether that's local Kubernetes cluster, remote, I don't care. Mm-hmm. I want my code to be always in sync, whatever is running there, with the minimum possible delay. So I don't want to build an image, deploy, redeploy. That just takes 15 seconds, too much. I'm not patient enough for that.
So we want a fast feedback loop. Is it reasonable to expect that our feedback loop could be as fast as developing locally?
Yeah, or give or take. So I think that those things should be happening in a background, meaning that, hey, I'm developing, and whatever I'm typing, whenever I save the file, it automatically appears being deployed somewhere, and I can just check it in browser or whatever way I'm using to check my application, right? It's simply always there, up to date. And the second or third thing is that I need a way somehow to connect what I'm working on with the rest of the stuff. So I might be deploying database locally, but then I might be using queue, like, I don't know, Redis somewhere else, right, of Kafka. And I need a way to connect what I'm working on, let's say on my laptop, with something running somewhere else.
So just everything you would need in your development environment, like everything you should be able to access easily, you want to access that while you're developing and not later. You don't have to actually deploy it to the cluster to be able to see how well it's interacting with the other services in the cluster. Yeah,
so it's about speed, and it's about my computer not blowing up, meaning that I cannot bring my whole system on my laptop.
Okay.
So those 2 things.
I can add, I think it would be important too to be able to collaborate with other developers, especially remotely, or at least share what you're working on. What do you think about that?
Developers are, by definition, majority is a social, really not socializing type of people. So the less you collaborate, the better. That's the general rule. Now, that's not necessarily good for a company. Companies want to collaborate. But let's face it, you did not become a software engineer because you like talking with people. If that's what you like to do, you don't become a software engineer.
Great. Let's generalize groups of people. That's always a good idea. Always ends well. Okay, so I'm hearing fast feedback loop, easy to deploy to a production environment. So easy to set up, fast feedback loop, and then being able to interact with other services that are running in the cluster. And then maybe collaboration might be nice in there, but so with that, let's bring on our guests. We have today Nick Powell. Nick Powell is representing Telepresence for us. And next we have Carl Montanari. Oh, I just pressed the wrong button. Carl is here representing DevSpace. Hi, Carl. Next we have Elson Yuen. Welcome, Elson. Hello. And I'll give you, and then unfortunately for Nocalhost, but it's your own fault, Nocalhost. We have Victor representing you today. Nick, will you tell us briefly about yourself?
Sure. Senior Dev for Ambassador Labs. We maintain Telepresence and Emissary Ingress. Been been working with Ambassador Labs for 2 years. It's been a lot of fun, and I think Telepresence is super cool. And we've made a lot of progress in those 2 years. So
wonderful. All right, Carl, tell us about yourself, please.
Yeah. Developer at Loft. We're creators of DevSpace, vCluster, and I apologize in advance because I will be talking very fast because 5 minutes is not very long.
Instead of saying less, we'll just go faster. They're two strategies.
You just gotta fit it all in.
Elson, tell us about yourself, please.
So I'm Elson Yuen, the software architect from Red Hat. I'm the project lead for the Devfile project, CNCF project, CNCF all the way.
Woo! Thank you for saying hi. And then Victor, who gives you the right to talk about Nocalhost? What do you know?
You gave me the right because you reminded me an hour ago saying, hey, you remember that you're talking about localhost? That was our conversation on Slack. And I said, no, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
You gave me the right.
Strong credentials. I love it. All right, let's say goodbye, Elson, and goodbye, Carl. And Nick, we're gonna give you your 5 minutes. So I'll press the timer as soon as you start. You can take a deep breath. You got me as your timekeeper, a friendly lady who will still cut you off.
All right. So yeah, anytime.
All right.
I was looking at what you guys have done so far, and noticed you guys picked up a database for your app. So I came with kind of a similar application. I too chose a dangerous route of a live demo. So basically, we've got this JavaScript front end here, a data processing service in the back, and a database behind that. So first, I'm going to show you now like the first super cool feature of Telepresence that I really like. We don't have to go in through the ingress when we're connected with Telepresence. Telepresence is basically a...
Will you make your terminal text bigger, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
We don't have to go in through the ingress when we're connected with Telepresence, because Telepresence is basically half a VPN. We take your computer and we put it in your cluster. That means we provide your computer with all the DNS it needs to be in the cluster. So we don't have to go in through the ingress. We can just curl the service name .namespace port, just like as if you were a container in your cloud. And that's what we've done here. So we are talking to my application, which is running in a Kubernetes cluster. So what I want to show you next is I want to tweak this data processing service. Like right now it's reporting as green. Let's make a simple change and have it report as blue. So let's start up a local version of that process here on my computer. And let's intercept that service in the cloud. Now I'm going to do a little complicated stuff. I'm going to specify an ingress so that we are sending our requests to the front-end application rather than to data processing service itself. And hopefully this all works. A shorthand flag. Try that. There we go. So now we have this preview URL, which will be, we use header matching to separate dev traffic from regular traffic. And when we open this URL, if everything goes correctly, we should hit our local service on our local machine. There we go.
Woo, my heart is racing.
Yeah, so basically we've installed our Telepresence agent, which does header matching to filter out traffic so that traffic that comes in through this URL hits our local service here. You saw the request hit, but you can see that regular traffic, we can refresh this as much as we want. Regular traffic will still hit the service that's in the cloud. So why do we do this? Why do we redirect all this traffic to your local machine? Well, there's a lot of cool tools that you can use on your local machine that aren't present in your cluster, like hot loading, like breakpoints, like all the beautiful, wonderful tools we have for local coding can now be present as if it was in your cluster. And I remember you were saying something about sharing between devs, even though you kind of were hesitant. I would like to paste this link in chat, and you guys could go to it and see this image yourself. But and the idea is if I had a preview, I could share it with my other developers and say, hey, what do you think about this different implementation?
I just put the link into the chat so everyone can access it.
Yeah, so I posted it in private chat. Is there somewhere else I should have posted it instead?
Oh, no, you're good. We just had to move it over to public chat, and it's in there.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. So yeah, you guys can try it out yourselves, and you'll see my app with the change that I made.
Is that the end of your presentation?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this is like so it's super useful and cool, and I like it a lot.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. That was a wonderful presentation. Victor's clapping. There you go. And and I didn't have to cut you off, which I appreciate. Anyone who has questions about telepresence or any of the technologies we talk about in these presentations, please put them in chat now, and then we'll get to those questions later in the Q&A portion of our show. Thank you so much, Nick.
Especially if it's Nocalhost. Yes. Especially Nocalhost.
We want to understand every little inner working of how that goes. All right, bye, Nick. Thank you so much. All right, Elson's up next. Hello, Elson. Thanks so much for being here today and sharing your time and expertise. And let me... Okay, are you ready to start?
Yep.
Okay, I'll start when you do.
Okay, so let's talk about Devfile. So a simple way to take a look at Devfile is Devfile is a specification or open standard for defining containerized development environment. So it's meant to set up your development workflow. So before, let's see the common problems that developer faces first, and then developer environment setup can be very complex, and that's why sometimes you hear 5.15 still not fully set up because of dependencies and other things, or even tiny versions differences in there. Sometimes your application may not be running. The other famous developer code is it works on my machine, so it's not only difficult to set up, but it's also inconsistent because of tiny different steps or the order of things that I'm doing things. Sometimes it works on my machine, and sometimes it doesn't work on my peer's machine. And then scalability problems because developer's machine may not be the most powerful machine in the world, so developer on the cloud is actually going to help. So that's where Devfile comes in to help you to do development environments as code, so that all the setup is actually repeatable through automations. So make sure it's consistent, and also it's actually quick as well. And we believe in the project setup. We don't want a monolithic setup for multiple projects to be working on at the same time. We want short-lived, purpose-built project setup so that it goes with your project itself. It will be much more easy for you to maintain that environment, and it needs to be scalable. So to use Devfile, all you need to do is to drop the Devfile or .devfile.yaml file into your source code repository, check it as part of that, and any tools that understand the Devfile will be able to use it. So if you take a look at a typical Devfile, it's got different components in there, which can define the runtime of the services that's required by your applications. You can also define the commands for doing build, test, and run and debug on your applications as well. There's also lifecycle operations that you can do as after my port brings up, I need to do certain operations in there. Of course, the Devfile specification is more than just that. This is just a highlight of it. The Devfile also covers both inner loop and outer loop. By inner loop, meaning that you can actually build, run, and test and debug your applications in a rapid development environment. You can actually quickly go through and see your test results. But then the container may be a little bit more optimized. Then that's why we also have the outer loop support that allows you to do the full build and deployment. And the output of that will be much more closer to a production build, so it can be the final test before you go put it on a staging or environment. So developers, we don't want to reinvent the views. So that's why we've got the Devfile registry. It's a collection of dev files that's available out there. So developers can use the tools that can do Devfile catalog, or can go to the web UI that is going to show the catalogs in place. So once you find, let's say you want a Noc applications, copy the Noc dev file from there and then put it into your project. Or you can also use the parent support for referring to a dev file on a registry and then customize based on that as well. So we've got a Devfile community registry available for a couple of different technologies that's out there. So you can readily use. Each one of them has got sample applications that you can use and run tests on it as well. So not only we provide the Devfile public community registry, allowing you to have your own private registry in case your company want to have a list of different stacks available, then you can create your own private registry and run it and allow your developers to connect to it. So how Devfile works, you start from a Devfile YAML. There will be different tools that understand it, and it will convert it into, for example, the Dev Workspace operator will convert into workspace, pod, and services on a Kubernetes environment. We will not only support Kubernetes environment, we also have the Docker plugin that can bring up Docker containers and services in place as well. And we believe in developers want the IDE of their choice. So that's why you can actually use your IDE with the Devfile supports in place to do your development as well. We not only have the IDEs, there's also existing CLIs and app services in there that will understand Devfile that you can build and run the application for you. So this is just a quick glimpse of the Devfile project.
16,
so hopefully
15.
the main goal for Devfile is to allow developers to focus on the coding. So thank you.
Great job. Oh, right in time. I love your efficiency. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Definitely talking a little bit faster than I normally do.
We appreciate that.
You have to do what you have to do.
That was great. Great work. All right. We'll see you again during the Q&A part of the show. Thank you, Elson. Let's get Elson's screen off. All right. And now, Carl, welcome. Let's get your screen on.
Alrighty.
I'll start the clock when you start.
Alrighty,
Yeah.
Cool. All right, here we go. So we've already set the stage that all of what we're talking about is about building and developing in Kubernetes. So to start, we're just going to go ahead and actually deploy an application with DevSpace. So you can see here from the output, we're deploying a simple Helm chart. This is the Silly Swappy app. It's Silly Star Wars API app, and we're going to use that for the demo. Hopefully everything will come online here pretty quickly. We're just going to do this, just kind of get the lay of the land, and then we're going to actually jump into development. So this application is really simple. It's 3 containers, 3 pods. There's a PostgreSQL in a container. Don't hate me. We can imagine that this is like some resource that's in your cluster or in a cloud that your cluster's in that you can't access locally. So we'll just pretend it's not this. And then we've also got a fast API Python application that is basically serving people and planet data from the Star Wars database to the client. And the client is just another silly Python application that's just trolling that API every once in a while, printing some stuff out. So this is not about deploying applications, although that's obviously part of it. This is really about developing applications. So we'll go ahead and use DevSpace Purge to go ahead and clean things up, right? Because we want to have a fresh start. So we can see it's already done. Probably don't need to explain DevSpace Purge too much. And now we can get the DevSpace Dev. And this is the meat of it. That's what we're all here for. DevSpace Dev is really cool because the main thing here is that we deploy applications and we develop applications in the same way we deploy them. So you can see that we've already got some of the same Helm output that we saw from before. But what's great is in the DevSpace YAML file, we've basically told DevSpace how we want to develop on our application. And what we've done here is we've said, hey, I want to work in the client and I want to swap out the image that is normally deployed with the client with the dev image. In this case, the dev image comes from a DevSpace dependency, which we don't have to talk about, but you can probably figure out what that's all about. And the dev image basically has all the tools already pre-installed that you would want. In this case, We have like something like HTTP, which is a little Python kind of web testing CLI app. We can test our application. This is our application, the API server. We can hit the I love you endpoint. Of course, we know that Leia says that. And if we hit I know, we of course know that that's Han's response. And we could run the client. This is what we kind of saw in the log output before. But this is all about development, not about just running and poking around our app. So let's do some development. So we can see here, we've got this output. It's great. It's super. It's the best app you've ever seen. But the created and updated date, probably not all that useful. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. So in my local editor here, just using Sublime, nice and simple, I can go ahead and make this lovely little one-line change. Restart my service. File's already been synced. Everything's good. We can talk about hot reloading in a second. I don't have a lot of time, but we'll talk about that in a second. But we could say, hey, maybe this is like kind of a bad fix. So maybe we don't actually want to update the client. So we could put that back, and we're kind of back to stage one or step one or whatever. But we could do this a better way. Let's go to our API server, and the better way being, let's just comment out some stuff. That's obviously a great way to do development. And we could see that the changes have already taken effect. We could see all the new stuff that's coming back from the API server no longer has this. What's interesting about this is obviously we've talked to DevSpace. We've told DevSpace, hey, I want to work on the client. That's fantastic. But this actually happened on the API server. And not only that, but it also did hot reloading of the application that was running on the API server. In this case, this was done by DevSpace having an exec command basically that executes us every time we sync files. But there's also a DevSpace reload helper that can help kind of reload anything that's even not necessarily easily hot reloadable. In this case, since this is UVcorn and Fast API, you probably could just rely on that. But for purposes of demo, we'll go ahead and do it this way. Some other stuff about DevSpace that's really nice. It makes it really, really easy to expose things in your cluster via SSH. And this is really useful if you want to do like remote interpreter or remote IDE stuff, and you can connect your editor straight to your pods if you didn't want to do like local development, like I would kind of prefer. Another cool thing with this is when we do this, we can also do proxy commands. So I'm running kubectl in the container that doesn't have kubectl installed on it, and it's actually just proxy back to my local host. This is really, really, really nice when you're doing stuff in that remote IDE kind of setup, and you don't want to have to context switch between like, hey, am I local, am I remote? It's all just kind of a unified thing, which is really great. And then the last thing here that I want to show before a little bit of time is that we could port forward stuff. It's obviously table stakes, but kind of the point here is that we've port forwarded the API here, and we've done this all in a very ergonomic fashion with one DevSpace YAML file controlling all of these kind of things that we've got going on here. And also to one of Victor's points earlier, we could port forward from local stuff to remote stuff as well. This is obviously not that. Less than 30 seconds, a quick slide, as it were, some links. Y'all can read that, so I won't say anything about that. Some free advice, obviously getting what you're paying for. Keep it simple, stupid. It's always good evergreen advice. Image building, file sync, and terminal is like 80% of most of the use cases for this. There's a bunch of DevSpace features you could pile on as you get 10, more advanced, but just start 9, there. 8, and I can't read all the rest 7, of it, and I knew 6, it wouldn't, so we'll just stop there.
Great job. Excellent. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. Props, kudos to y'all for doing live demos in your 5 minutes. I appreciate that. It really adds like a adrenaline element. So we're gonna say goodbye to you, and then we have our last and by far the most inferior presenter coming up next. Wait.
There we go.
Did I say that
First
out loud?
All, I'm going to. Of course you did. So first, I'm going to put on a screen all the material that I prepared. Okay, there we go. Material.
Are you starting? I need to start this. Yeah?
Okay, yeah, start it. Yeah,
okay.
Go.
5 minutes.
So, whomever knows me one way or another knows that I'm a big fan of command line, right? I think it's so much easier to execute a CLI command than go through some graphical user interface. I do not like UIs, right? Now, when development is concerned, my favorites or tools I use often is DevSpace, Tilt, Octeto, a few others, right? They all do very similar things, like enable me to deploy what I need and synchronize the code and potentially connect with other apps. Now, what I'm going to say next is going to be a shock, right? So there is a tool that was primarily designed not to do that, not to do CLI, but to enable me to synchronize code and deploy applications in development environments without a terminal, right? And that's Nocalhost. I think that's how it's pronounced. Anyways, it enables us to do most of the things through Visual Studio Code or JetBrains IDE. I haven't used JetBrains forever, so I don't know, but probably does. Anyways, so what is localhost? The short version is that it is a tool to build, test, and debug applications directly inside Kubernetes. Now, a slightly longer version is that it allows us to use an IDE like Visual Studio Code or JetBrains to develop applications inside Kubernetes. So if you like IDEs and you don't want to use terminal, to ever see a terminal in your life, you like clicking buttons from Visual Studio Code, that's Nocalhost, right? So the interesting part is that, at least for developers who are not proficient with Kubernetes yet, who do not need to see how their application behaves in a cluster and so on and so forth, it gives us an automated process to do all the stuff we need to do without really knowing much about Kubernetes. And when I say automated, I mean click a button in Visual Studio Code. So if you want to deploy, test, debug your application in an environment that is close to production, and you do not want to deal with CLIs, then Nocalhost is the tool. It's all about clicking buttons, filling in forms, and observing the outcomes in VS Code. Now, as for pros and cons, good and bad things, right? It is not the best, nor it has the best options that I've seen among similar tools. Personally, I prefer DevSpace or Tilt or Octeto, right? Nevertheless, if you are developer, it's very, very developer friendly, right? Within that category of tools, right? If you don't want command line, if you want to click buttons, it's absolutely amazing. And it is very surprisingly feature rich, actually. Now, there are some features which I'm not going to go through because I don't have enough time, but some really, really funky, fancy features that you might want to check out, right? Now, I said this is pros and cons now. So let me put the negative things out of the way immediately. The documentation is horrible. It's really, really, maybe it's good, but it's such bad English that I cannot understand what's going on, right? Now, the good things is that it's extremely easy to use. You can jump into it in like 15 minutes. It does what it needs to do when development is concerned, deploying and synchronizing code and stuff like that, and it's very feature rich, right? And that's about it. That's my 5 minutes or whatever it took, right? And now, actually, one more note. If anybody who watches this channel is interested in Nocalhost, I can create a video with more details. So just let me know. That's it. That's my 5 minutes. Did I do it on time? Yeah?
Yeah, you were 4 minutes. So I didn't even get excited like I might get to interrupt you.
There you go.
But, well, why? You just said you prefer DevSpace and it's not as full-featured as DevSpace. The reason you would use Nocalhost is because it's easier to jump into? Is that the answer?
Yeah, because some people get scared of terminal, kind of. And my theory is that people get scared with something that doesn't have at least a couple of hundred colors. I don't know. People don't like terminal. Some people don't like it. And then it's cool, right? Kind of like click, click, click. I mean, other tools also allow you integration with Visual Studio Code. But this one was designed for that. So if Visual Studio Code is your thing and you're scared of terminal, then it's good. It's great.
Nice. Oh, I'm going to bring everyone on. It's kind of unlike you to be like, if you have these crutches, then here's an answer for your crutch. Because usually you, Victor, are like, if you have this crutch, you just need to get over your crutch, and instead of finding a way around it.
Yeah, but I made a New Year's resolution that I'm going to be nicer this year.
Yeah. So this Victor I've known throughout this whole show is nice, Victor. Oh no.
It won't last long. It won't last long.
Great job, Victor. Thank you for presenting. We're gonna start digging in on questions. If y'all have any questions for our guests about their presentations or about developing on Kubernetes generally, please drop those in chat and we'll get to those. So the first question is for Telepresence, for Nick. Does Telepresence work with Istio?
Yes. There's a couple little tricks you have to use to work with headless services, but hopefully our documentation is good enough. But yes, it is used, and people pay us to use it with Istio. So
Way to inspire confidence, Nick.
I know, but it's all this stuff. Like I know firsthand how tricky all these things are to get working together. Right?
Yeah, it's
but
true.
I can say with some confidence it does work with this too. Yes.
Excellent. And another question for you, Nick. How does the Telepresence agent run in Kubernetes? Is it just another pod, or does it rely on Ambassador Cloud?
So there are two bits that we have to install into your cluster. We need to install one traffic manager into your cluster. That's the other end of the VPN tunnel. And for every pod that is intercepted, so let's say you have a deployment, the deployment has 5 pods in it. Right? Each of those pods we inject a sidecar, which is a traffic agent. That's what does the header matching, header filtering, header matching. Yes, the filtering according to header matchers. I'll get it right eventually. So as requests come in, we look at all the headers and in the request. If it matches certain filters, we redirect that traffic to your local computer via the traffic manager and VPN tunnel. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Elson, we have a question for you. With Devfile, what is the operator doing? What's the value of Devfile versus just having a dev flavor of your app YAML manifests?
Yeah, so for this show, I'm focusing on the application development part of it. In most of the cases, when people are doing the operators, they are bringing up a complete development environment. For example, Eclipse JA is using Devfile as a configuration for bringing up their development environment. The other thing that Devfile has is the commands that goes with it. So when it's got the build and test and commands, so different commands will be running through that. By doing that, it allows you to set up your hot deploy on your developer containers easily. So different from your typical application YAML, for which you just have one definition on that. You don't have tools to help you out. Devfile provides you a tool agnostic way for defining your development environment as code, so that any tools that understand Devfile will be able to provide the same experience for you. But then using your familiar IDE or CLI or application service that you want.
That's a great answer. That to follow up with that answer, do DevSpace and Telepresence and Nocalhost, do y'all have declarative ways to define your development environment? Victor, what about Nocalhost?
You get the file when you click in Visual Studio Code. You get the file that defines things you need.
So okay. So you don't define it? The IDE is the one defining the environment? That's confusing.
That's the point of it. You kind of click. You need to click.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. How about you,
can
Carl?
write the file. You can write the file with Nocalhost, but then it defines the purpose, right? The primary objective of Nocalhost is to kind of allow you to do stuff from Visual Studio Code. If you start writing files and things like that, then you might not necessarily need something like localhost, right?
Right on. Nick, I see your hand up.
Yeah. Telepresence will automatically do mounts for you. So if your Kubernetes pod has a mount, the Telepresence will automatically set that up on your local machine as well.
Is that declarative?
No, it's automatic. It's like so we use HFS to kind of stream the file to your local computer.
Okay, excellent. And Carl?
Yeah, of course, we got DevSpace YAML. All the things can go in there. Just a simple YAML file, and you can configure all the sync and port forward and this and that, and all of it. Easy peasy. Excellent.
All right, so we have a question for you, Carl, from chat. Oh, can you show how to debug an application on your IDE? I think maybe screen sharing at this point of the show is too much. What do you think, Victor, as fellow host?
I don't know whether Carl uses Java to begin with.
I don't use Java, and I also am like low tech, and I use DevSpace, and I just do everything local in my IDE. I don't connect it to like the containers, but you absolutely can. I could drop some links in the comments there for getting all that set up.
Cool. So you absolutely can. Do you want to speak to it any more than that, or we'll just get the links going?
Yeah, I can put the links. The TLDRs, there's a couple flavors, either expose with SSH and do kind of the remote interpreter thing like we talked about, or you can also do some other fancy VS. I don't use VS Code either, so JetBrains over here. But yeah, so you can definitely do remote stuff. I'll just paste the links so that way I don't misspeak.
Okay, sounds good. And we have another question for you when you're ready, but while you're doing that, I'll ask Elson. So Elson, you're talking about Devfile being a language, tool agnostic way to define your development environment. What are some tools that you can use with Devfile then?
So Eclipse J is there, OpenShift developer console. There's also IDE extensions in VS Code doing OpenShift connectors. Amazon has got a code catalyst in there. JetBrains has got the space dev environment. Recently, GitLab is actually using Devfile technology for loading up the web IDE as well as a remote development environment. So there's a bunch of options in there. There's also CLI, like ODO is a development environment that you can use for connecting to Kubernetes specifically. So there's a bunch of them in there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, Carl, the next question, how does DevSpace work with compiled languages like Go or Rust?
Yeah. So I use Python, for example, because it's nice and easy. But actually, everything we do at Loft is all Go. So we use DevSpace, obviously, to develop on that. There's a couple ways you could do it. For me, like I said, I'm pretty low tech. So I just Control-C, up arrow, and hit enter to go run again. And that works really well for me. And then, but you can absolutely set up hot reloading with that with either the DevSpace restart helper, or you can have a custom restart helper, or you could kind of do even somewhere in the middle low-tech solution like I did with the example that we did, where there's just literally a shell script that kills the previous process and reruns whatever you got to run. So lots of ways to skin the cat, but absolutely you can make it work.
Excellent. So I have another question for everyone. Let's say I'm a developer. I arrive at work in the morning and I'm ready to start developing my Kubernetes native application. Like, what is my experience to get set up for the day and interacting with with your tool? Let's start. I guess, Victor, I think I know your answer, but Victor, let's start with you. Oh, Victor, you're muted. You're muted, Victor.
Okay.
Click.
You click things.
Click.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Now,
Nick. Wait. Okay.
Let me tell you that actually usage of Nocalhost is much more pleasurable if you have mechanical keyboard.
System requirements. Mechanical keyboard. All right. Nick, what's the experience like with Telepresence? Sit down for the day for work and I want to work on my Kubernetes application.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Well, it depends on what you want to do. But once you have like a particular service you want to debug, it's a one-line command to intercept and reroute that traffic to your local workspace. So you have to tell Telepresence to make that intercept, and then you have to start up that local service on your local computer. And then once you got those two set up, you feel free to just hack away.
Cool. And how about you, Elson?
Yeah, so for Devfile, you will be assigned from, let's say, an application that you want to do. You can either go to the Devfile registry to find the language that's matching to you and load it up on your Devfile, or there are tools like, for example, ODO can do discovery for you, analyze your applications, and then do the matching for the Devfile for you as well. So they will actually add that file into your project automatically as part of that. So then once you have that, then you just run the applications in your tools that you want.
Cool. And last but not least, Carl, how's it work with DevSpace?
We did it. We did it all live, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm a DevSpace dev, and everything's going to be synced. You'll have already configured this in your DevSpace YAML, obviously according to whatever you're trying to do. But yeah, files are synced magically, port forwards one way or the other, or both, if you need to. And then, like for me, I do everything in my local IDE. But if you want to do the remote interpreter thing as well, you can do that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's that easy.
Excellent. All right, so that's all the questions we have in chat. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone, but as I do, I'd love for you to give like a 1 or 2 sentence recap of your tech and why you think folks should vote for you. So Nick, let's start with you.
Yeah, Telepresence takes your computer, puts it in the cloud, and it allows you to filter traffic by, your local changes versus regular cloud traffic.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. Goodbye. All right, Elson, you're next.
So Devfile allows you to use the IDE of your choice, just CLI of your choice in there, all about flexibility and then consistency as well. So try it out.
Excellent. Thank you, Elson. Carl.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing here is that DevSpace kind of helps codify your development environment and lets you develop how you want to do, all while kind of putting that into code and making it shareable and ergonomic and just easy to use. So that's it.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Carl. Nocalhost, Victor. Are you there, Victor?
It's Visual Studio Code.
Click, click, click.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. If you like click, if you don't like terminals, it's something to try.
Excellent.
I think that nobody from Nocalhost community will speak to me ever again.
Click, click, click. That's all. Nocalhost. Click, click, click.
Yeah.
They have a new tagline if they like it or not. Putting your you choose host hat on. Do you want to do like a post game analysis of everything we heard today?
No.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to say vote for this one or that one. I have my favorite.
Oh, yeah,
but,
yeah.
I'm going. It's my New Year's.
Whatever. You already
resolution.
said your favorite. You already said your favorite. We can recap what we were looking for. Yeah, but I won't repeat it. We were looking for, we talked about like declarative versus imperative ways to define your environment, which is not something I think we talked about before in the show. And then we talked about having fast feedback. We talked about maybe collaborating, maybe it doesn't matter. What else did we talk about for being important in these tools?
Setup. I mean, connect with other applications running. Easy setup, code synchronization. Those are the major ones for me personally.
Excellent. So then there's only one thing left to discuss, and that is please vote. Victor, it's your turn to put it on your Twitter.
Don't vote now. Vote later when we put it on Twitter. Actually, I need to run, so Whitney is going to put it on her Twitter.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll put it up on my Twitter, which you can see here, Wiggity Whitney. And please vote for a tech, and we'll implement it in the next show, which is going to be a Chapter 1 recap, where we'll do the full demo from start to finish with all the winning technologies that y'all have chosen. All right, that's a wrap.
I need to remember that.
I'll remind you, Victor. Goodbye, y'all. Have a wonderful day.